Hello, everybody. I'm Helen, and I teach at the Dorothy Benson Senior Center. And today we're going to work on making boxes. And it'll be a 4-week session. And I'm going to show you the easy way first. Let me show you some examples. Okay, here is a box. And it has feet on it. And it has a simple lid like that. Okay. And it is on angle. And on this one, I did decorate the top. And what I did was I carved lines in it and inserted underglaze in there. Okay. Here's another one. This one doesn't have feet on it, but it does have a lid, and I did heavily carve it. And as you can see, my lid is not like, it doesn't go all the way around evenly. And the reason why is because you don't want the lid to slide off. So that's why it's irregular like that. But this one is carved heavily. And as you can see, it's pretty 3D. It's pretty thick. Okay. So you have the option of putting a lid on it, or you can put feet on it. Here's another one that's similar, but in this case, the lid is smaller. So it's more like this. And I did carve the top, and there's some piercing in there. This one has really small, short feet. I just carved out the bottom excess and made little short, stubby feet for this one. And here's another idea you can do. You can give it feet, and you can actually, turn it into a person, or even put an animal head on it. This one, the lid opens from like that. It doesn't really open on the side, and it just opens on top like that. All right, so it's got a irregular shaped lid, all right, and feet. So I'm going to show you how to make a very easy way to make a box. Used to be we would have to roll out slabs and bevel the sides to 45-degree angle. And then we would have to let it kind of dry and become almost leather hard. And then we would score the 4 sides and the bottom and put them together, score it and put slip on it and put it together. But this way, I'm going to show you how to make what I call a smoosh and mush box. What I'm going to do is show you this. This is the craft foam that you can get at Michael's in sheets. It only comes in 9 by 12, I believe. In order to make a square in one piece, I have to make it 4 inches. That's the maximum I could make on this one. Okay, so all you have to do is cut it. So this is 4 by 4, 4 by 4, 4 by 4. And then I kind of scored it. I didn't cut through it because I was afraid the foam was too thin for that. So if you put it together like this, it becomes a box, right? I did try one since I had 12 inches to play on one side. I'm going to try one maybe sometime later where it's more of a rectangular box. Might be a little bit hard because this is so thin and I don't have much of a support, but it's possible. And then I also thought I tried making one out of cardboard so I can make a bigger box. And I put duct tape on here because I didn't want the cardboard to get wet and warp on me. I'm not sure if the clay is going to stick to the duct tape, but we'll see. Okay, I'll try this some other time because it requires a much bigger piece of slab. So the first step we do is we roll out a slab that's going to be big enough for your piece. Now, we're just going to do a simple box today. I may have time to talk about the lid part, but right now we'll just do the basic part. Okay, so I'm going to roll this out, and you may want to roll it out no thinner than 1/4 of an inch. And let's see, I don't have slats that will give me 1/4 of an inch. Okay, normally you would put the slats on the side, and this way you can't go less than those slats. So these are 3/8 of an inch and they're too thick. So I did roll it out using those, but I'm kind of thinning this out a little bit. And you want to also roll it out on a piece of canvas or some thick fabric. Okay, so I've got about that size, I believe. Yeah, getting there. Okay, that's good enough. Right now, the next thing you do is you get this on here. I'll put it on here this way. And then you want to, and you don't have to be that careful, but you want to cut. If you want, you can cut this at a bevel angle, but because we're just going to smush the sides, that's not right now, it's not that important. So I'm just going to cut out this pattern. You can either make a square planter, a square box, or we can work on a lidded one. You can put feet on it. You can put decorative stuff on it. You can pierce it and turn it into like a thing you put a small candle in. There's all kinds of things you can do with this. Okay. So I'll put this over here to the side. All right. Now, you want to keep your little form on. And if you like, you could put a board down and then flip it over. But I'm going to try to flip it over without using a board. Okay. All right. So my piece is pretty thick. And I do have a crease here from the fabric. But that's okay. All right. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring the sides up and put them together. But right now, let me put this on here. Okay. So the foam kind of keeps you from like poking it and adding fingerprints to it. All right. So I've got this. Now I'm going to bring the sides up, but first, let's see. I need my scoring tool, which is where. All right. So I'm going to bring, and you're going to have to kind of help this along. Maybe I'll use a stick. I don't know if this will help, but okay. I'm just going to indent this just a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to bring this up, and the foam keeps me from poking right through it. And then I'm going to bring this side up. Okay. Now, because the edges aren't beveled, you're going to get this effect right here. I just butt the ends together. And then what I'm going to do is squish and pinch these together. So that's going to distort your box, but that's okay. We can fix it later. So I pinched it together. And then I am going to try to smooth that out a little bit. You want something stiff and yeah, this is a wooden rib. I think that's what they're called. Yeah. So I'm just going to push it together, push and pull. Okay. Your whole piece is going to get distorted, but don't worry about it right now. Now the inside, we do need to reinforce the inside. So I am going to take, let's see, I'll take this guy. And I'm just going to you need to support your back, okay? And use the foam so you don't get like fingerprints or something. Okay, I did that. Now I'm going to put a small coil down there. The corners do need to be reinforced, so I'll put a small coil here, and you kind of want to have extra right here for now. All right, now I need to smooth that out best I can. Okay. Just pinch it and get it the best you can. All right. We can still straighten this out later, so don't worry too much. Smooth it out really good here. Okay. Now we'll do this side. I'll bring this one up. Squish it together. Then we will pinch this again. See if I can bring it closer. Okay. Smooth that out if you can. Okay, once again, we have to reinforce the inside, so we will have to do this. And a little worm again. Now, the outside is really messy. Well, the inside's messy too, but the inside, you kind of want to get it smooth and clean as much as possible because it's a little bit harder to get into once you get all four sides up. So I will do that. It's not perfect, but it's okay. All right. We're going to do the last panel. You've got two joints now to deal with. So support from the inside like this. Squish it together. Okay. Then support from the inside once more. Push and pull gently. Push and pull. Okay, now I have to reinforce the inside joints again. Now we are working with wettish clay, so that's why you can do squishing. You don't have to put slip on right now. You can if you want. And you want to take slightly softer clay for the inside. And I've got two places I've got to join, so it gets a little bit harder because it's, you know, because all four walls are up now. Okay. Okay, what you want to concentrate on is really squeezing it, make sure there's no trapped spaces in there. We're not worried so much about the air bubbles. We just want to make sure this is like really on here good. So really squish it together, and you're going to be distorting your box as you do that, but don't worry about that right now. So I'm just really squishing it. Then I'm going to go and kind of wet the rib a little bit. I'm going to support it from the inside. I'm really going to push hard and pull up. Okay, I did whip my rib so it won't drag the clay too much. All right. So I'm really pushing and pulling. I'll get rid of any open spaces there. But you have to like really push hard because you want the clay to smush together really good. Okay, at this point, you can decide to keep it a square shape, or if you want, you can technically bulge out a side and make it like more of a bulge shape. What you probably shouldn't do and can't, I don't recommend this, but is to flare out the top, this area, because that's going to weaken these seams. Okay, so now I'm going to straighten this out, and I do want to kind of wet my rib. All right, you got to support it from the inside, and you push and pull up again. And if you have a straight edge like this, you can really, if you have a 90-degree angle straight edge, this is really helpful. Okay, because it'll straighten out your piece. Once again, I need to wet it so it doesn't drag. Make sure all my seams are completely smushed together. You don't want to use too much water because then it'll just weaken your clay piece and it'll probably sag. Okay, so you keep doing this until you get it the way you want. Mine's not perfect. I need to really sit down to look at it from a horizontal angle. Okay, now what happens is these parts are going to raise up. We can trim that off later, but right now concentrate on the sides to get them as even as possible, or as straight as possible, or as smooth as possible. You want to get things as smooth as possible, unless you're going for the rough surface kind of visual. But a lot of times this part people need to pay attention to is the finishing part. That means smoothing stuff, making it not so lumpy. Okay, it does take time, but it's kind of important. Okay, I'm sort of getting it square. It's still kind of curved here. Support from the inside. Okay, and I can check to see if it's vertical by using something like this 90-degree rib. Okay. It's sort of curved on the bottom part, but you know what? That's okay because I don't think I'm going to put feet on this one. And maybe I do want it to not look like it's growing out of the surface of a table or something. So I might bevel the bottom part. Okay, and I can clean it up later. All right, at this point, you have to decide on your rim. You can, if you want, use some kind of a measuring device to get the rim even everywhere. Okay, or you can just eyeball it. Okay. So this side seems a little bit too tall. I will take my needle tool, or if you can keep something steady, you can try this, your turning wheel thing. Or you might want to decide these guys are going to be part of your decoration, and maybe add more clay and make it super pointy. Right now, my clay is very wet. If I want this to be perfect, I have to keep working on it as it slowly dries. I have to come back and keep touching it up and touching it up. It's not going to happen when it's super wet like this. Okay, I hope that's even. I mean, I could turn it upside down, make it even, but I decided this is going to be a planter, so it doesn't have to be as even. You may want to clean the inside up, but now make sure your corners are reinforced really good. They're going to be a little bit thicker on the corners, and you kind of want that because it needs to be reinforced. Okay. You can always, as this dries, you can always carve away any excess clay if one part is way too thick. You just have to do it a little bit at a time and carefully. Okay, I'm actually going to, normally I won't, but I'm gonna actually have to wet this a little bit. Get it this smooth. Okay, so I have a little air space here. I'm gonna have to close that up. Okay, right now it's jaggedy. As I go along, I can clean it up and smooth it out. I don't want it sopping wet. That one's a little bit crooked there. Now make sure you always have some kind of a barrier between your clay piece and the surface you're working on. Otherwise, it's going to stick to your surface and you're probably going to rip it off. Okay, this is kind of not exact, but close enough. Okay, now, so there's several things you can do. If I wanted to, I can put very small feet on here, but I have to wait until this is stiff enough and I can flip it over and do it. If my bottom was super thick, I can carve away and just make, and I can give an illusion that there's feet, but I really, the bottom really will be sitting on top of the table. The other option, I'll just go ahead and tell you what the illusion part looks like. What I'm going to do is kind of push and let's see, I usually will carve away a little bit, but let's see if I can push it here. Okay. Normally I wait until it's a little bit stiffer before I do this. Whatever works. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Normally I would wait until it's a little bit stiffer, but I'm going to try to do it right now. And what I'm going to do is put it on I'm going to flip it over, okay? Hopefully it'll work. So this is the bottom of my box. Okay, now what I can do, and I hope it doesn't sag on me because right now the clay is pretty wet. And I can add feet. So I should show you how to add feet. I'm going to kind of squeeze in the sides a little bit gently, a little bit at a time. And I'm actually squeezing and trying to raise it. Move the clay up a little bit. Okay, this isn't exactly a perfect square. Okay, right now this bottom is already starting to sag, but I can flip it over later. Feet. So I will give it tiny, tiny feet. And if you want it to be even, you can roll out a fat coil and evenly divide it into 4 pieces, but I'm just going to make little round feet. Okay, you do have to score this now. Okay, so I'm going to score it on the corners, heavily score it, okay? And then I'm going to actually wet this clay piece. I'm gonna score it heavily. And what I'll do is do a wiggle, wiggle, wiggle thing until I can feel the suction going on. And don't press down too hard because right now the thing is soft and it's not going to hold up all that pressure. So very carefully, I'm going to blend this. I'm not really going to have balls for feet. I'm just going to probably make it a cone shape. Okay, just want to blend this in really good. Okay, and then I'm going to squish it and form it. Make sure it's attached to pretty good. This attachment is not super critical, but it does need to be attached very well. Because when I flip it over, the weight of the pot's going to make sure it's adhere very well. I can't flip it over right now because this is too soft. When I do flip it over, I'm going to have to put a support thing in the center. Okay, so once again, we dip this in water. You can use slip if you want. And then I'm just going to make slip by wiggling it. And you'll feel the suction. It reaches a point where it won't move anymore. And you kind of want to use a tool to push and pull because I think your fingers will be too big for this part. Okay. Then I'm going to smooth that out. And if you've accidentally gouged something out, just move that clay. The inside of the feet aren't going to be as visible. The outside is more critical. Okay. So normally you want your box to be a little bit stiffer before you do this. So at this point, I've got 2 feet on and it's kind of hard to clean the inside. So I'm going to squeeze the sponge really good and then try to clean it up right now. It's going to soften the clay a little bit, but it's easier than trying to clean it when I've got all 4 feet on. Okay, we got the 3rd foot. We gently, just barely push it down, but wiggle it so it will make mud and make it muddy and get suction going on. Go ahead and put the 3rd one and the last one. Sometimes you have to be careful your feet aren't drying out while you're putting the other ones down, you know, like if you have it on the table. If you're in an air-conditioned environment, sometimes they dry out a lot faster than you think. Okay, so I'm gonna squish that on there. Okay, now I'm going to shape it. Let's blend it. I always do like, if I push it and smooth it, I try to go towards the joint instead of this way, because that way kind of might make weaken the joint if you're pulling up. So I try to go towards the joint. Okay, and then this one. Okay, you don't want feet that are like an inch thick. Okay, let's say you had big chunky feet and you wanted to keep it that thick. What I recommend is you put them on, but you on this side you really can't see it from the outside. I would carve out, kind of hollow out a bit so it's not as thick. Okay, if it's too thick, you know, it might not dry enough to go in the kiln, and it might get blown off. And what causes things to detach and blow off in the kiln is the moisture content in the clay. And if you have a very thick piece, it's just you know, depending on who's firing it. Okay, if it's a very thick piece and you thought you had it completely dry, there's still going to be moisture way on the inside where you can't see. So if I was firing something that thick, I would have to candle it. That means I have to put the kiln on 180 degrees for about 8 to 10 hours to make sure all the moisture has evaporated out of the clay. So it's really better if before I fire up the kiln, but so it's better to really not make it so thick, because something that thick really does take a long time. Okay, so I cleaned up everything as much as I could. Now, normally I would let this stiffen a little bit, but I still would flip it over. And in order to do that, the feet are going to squish down. And right now we don't, they're all irregular heights, and we can even it out on the board when they dry. But when I flip it over, I need some kind of a support. And I could either use a lump of clay, but you need to put a barrier, or I can just get a lot of paper towel. Probably a lump of clay is better, because then you can get an even surface. Let me try that instead. And you want it as large as you can, because you don't want a little round piece here, because that's going to put too much pressure just on that one point. So you want to get it as big as possible without messing up the feet. And about the height of your piece. This. It's about right. Okay, I need a barrier between that in the clay. So you've got the paper towel barrier, you've got the clay. This is going to support your box so that the feet aren't going to get squished. Now here's the challenge. All right, you're going to need some kind of a board, and you have to do this like in one swoop. So let's see, where's my tile? This board is kind of heavy, so I have to be careful. Hold it too. Okay, here we go. All right, so now the chunk of clay down there is supporting the feet. Okay, now at this point you can continue to straighten it out and fine tune this thing. And let's see, then I would check the feet too at this point. Let's see how it looks like. Let's see if I like it visually. I'm letting them turn in inside a little bit. Now you can always carve the feet out later if it's not, if one's way too thick than the other. What I'm probably going to just carve this pot just to make it a little bit more interesting. It's quite crooked right now. And that's because one of the feet is way too big. Push it down a little bit. Some people will use that level tool to make sure it's upright, I guess, level, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. I mean, if you want it perfect, you know, you can use the level tool, but I kind of like it quirky when it's for a plant. Okay, it's a little bit too soft for me to continue to straighten it out. Now, if I wanted to, I could take a paddle to shape it better. This paddle probably needs to have fabric on it, covered in fabric, because after a while it gets wet and the clay will stick to it. And just do it a little bit at a time. Pull that leg out. You just keep turning it around and around until you get it the shape you want. Let me just kind of like round off those corners. Don't pound it too hard on the top because it's still soft, all right? Yeah, just small pats. Okay, so right now I don't like this part. So when it's a little bit stiffer, I'll carve out because the corners are pretty thick. Okay, and I'll make sure I have a hole in the middle for the water, or maybe I don't need a hole in the middle. Okay. Now, if I want to carve this, I have to wait until it's like almost leather hard before I carve it because it's just too wet right now. And when you carve it, it takes a while. You know, your first pass, you're going to get a lot of burrs, and then this, you let it dry a little bit, and part it some more. You can also take like a blunt pencil and do a light sketch of what you want to carve on there. You know, of course, the pencil marks are going to burn out. Okay, so that's about it for now. I do have to let this stiffen up before I can further clean it up and smooth things out. So this guy's going to be, and don't forget your clay shrinks about 10 to 13% after the 2 firings. So this guy's going to be a lot smaller, and the larger you make a piece, the more obvious that shrinkage is going to be because it's based on percentage. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I can add decorative pieces to it. For example, I can add what I call applique pieces, and that'll be something like, let me see if I find one. Okay, so I have this little teeny tiny cutout thing. It's a flower, and I would have to make this thin, not too thin, okay? Probably, definitely less than 1/4 of an inch. And then I will press this in. And what you're going to get is this flower shape. What you want to do is kind of pinch the edges so they're a little bit thinner, because otherwise they just look like chunky little things. And let's see. And clean it up, okay? Right now it's super wet. I'm having a hard time cleaning it up, but you might want to shape it, let it sit, clean it up as it dries. And what you want to do is you want to make tiny scratches where you're going to put it. And you scratch this side, maybe put a little bit of slip support on the inside, and then you push like this. Oops, it's stuck. Okay, so it kind of looks like a flower on there. If you want to give it stamens, you can give it stamens. But you do need to kind of scratch it up and, you know, score it. And you can make these guys really 3D, like sticking out, and have a bunch on here, okay? So I don't think I'll be doing that. Oh, I got a little dimple right there. Okay, so next time we'll make the same box, but I'll show you how to make a lid and how to cut the lid so it doesn't slide off, and different ways that you can incorporate the cut into your design. And then after that, we're going to build a box the old-fashioned way, which is slabs, bevel the corners, the edges where they join, and then score and slip, okay? Breakage is more common with that technique than this technique, because this technique you're working with very, very wet clay. You just have to kind of come back to it like every couple of hours and straighten it out or something, okay? So once this stiffens up and dries, you can take it off, remove that little support. If you have a canvas covered board, you can flood it with water. And when this guy is pretty leather hard or even drier, gently you can smooth out the bottom so it evens out. Okay. All right, that's it. So we will see you next week. Thank you.